Good morning. I am so excited to be here today. Um, this is our last in the series of 10. I want to tell you that we started 5 weeks ago. The odometer on my car is proof of where we've been. We started in Buffalo and Rochester, and we've been all over the state. So I want to just take a moment this morning to really thank my colleagues, the commissioners who have been on this tour, Roanne DeStito, Commissioner of OGS, who also has been with the SIAT the longest. This is a Strategic Initiatives Assessment Team. That's what SIAT is. And this year we were joined by Commissioner Brian Stratton, who's been wonderful, of the Canals Corporation. And no matter where we go, there is a canal connection. That's been awesome to also learn from him. Roberta Reardon, Commissioner of Department of Labor, who has more mileage than me on her car, but
who's counting?
But who's counting? But not as much as the Lieutenant Governor, so we're good. We're also joined this morning by Assemblywoman Helene Weinstein, and she's also been on the tours with us. We are waiting for Ruth Wisnowski's from HCR, and I wanted to first of all thank you all, because this has been a long route, but it has also been exciting. And for me, it's also very fitting that we're finishing in the Bronx, since this is my hometown. Can I get an applause? So 2 weeks ago, we were in Plattsburgh, and I stayed at a bed and breakfast in Rouse's Point, which was right on the water, and I looked across. I could see Canada to one side, and I could see Vermont to the other side. And anytime I feel like kind of far away from home, I go, this is really far from the Bronx. Even though I've been living in Westchester for 20 years, for me, the Bronx is my home base, and it's also the nexus of Puerto Rico and New York. So as a Bronx-born Puerto Rican, it's really my pleasure to be here this morning as the chair of the SIAT, and that this be our closing to this series this year. So with no further ado, I want to welcome the REDC from this region. The region is more than the Bronx, it's the 5 boroughs, but who cares today? And as you know, you have 30 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll have 30 minutes for questions, and we look forward to joining you on a tour this afternoon. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and good morning. I'm Winston Fisher. On behalf of the New York City Regional Economic Development Council, we'd like to thank you, the members of the Strategic Implementation Assessment Team, for your review of our progress to date and plans for 2018. I'd also like to thank Hostos Community College and President David Gomez for hosting this event today. And I'd like to thank this incredible turnout, which shows the energy of this region and how committed we are to this program and to carrying out the governor's mission for economic development in New York City, the Bronx, and every place else. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Cheryl Moore. Joining us for the presentation today are 3 members of the Council's Executive Committee, Carol Conslato, Catherine Wild, and Ken Knuckles. We're also honored to have with us today Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., who's here to discuss our Downtown Revitalization Initiative winner, the Bronx Civic Center. As we begin, I'd like to ask President Diaz to make a few welcoming remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who are not familiar, welcome to God's country, the Boogie Down Bronx. I share the Secretary of State's sentiments about the Bronx, but let's be clear, I care about all 5 boroughs. I just wanted to say this very quickly. You know, a lot of times when you have these types of committees and councils, quite often you're deliberating and you're behind desks, and you really don't know or understand or appreciate the impact of the work that you do. The reality is that over the last 8 years alone, the Bronx has seen an incredible turnaround. Life is not perfect here, but we have seen economic development boom, as you will see in your tour. Over 68 million square feet of economic development, over 12.7 billion private dollars invested in our borough. over 30,000 units of housing, unemployment cut, working with the Labor Commissioner Reardon and the BOEDC, Marlene Sintron, unemployment cut here by more than half. And so this is a strong narrative, and the SIAT and the REDC is very much part of that narrative. And you have to understand that as we work together and as you do the work that you do and you have these studies and you do the grading of the different projects that become before you, working with the REDC and the CFA, the Bronx has benefited from over 86 projects. And this is real. These are projects that run the gamut, that really touch the lives of everyday Bronxites, like Praxis, which received over $1 million, that deals with those that are homeless coming out of the foster child system. When you look at the expansion of the Silver Cup Studios, which is not only creating jobs, but the film industry is booming, but it's allowing for us to show the world a different Bronx. And Wedco, which has a unit of, is a music hall, residential units, in the very last footprint of where the Bronx was burning in the '77 World Series. So I'm excited about the work that you've all been doing. I'm also excited that this year we were, thanks to the nomination of this respective body, we were chosen as one of the DRI first place winners, which I will talk a little bit about later, but I just wanted to welcome you all and really stress the point that the work that you're doing here and throughout the state of New York is real. It's more than just letters and numbers on paper. At least in the Boogie Down Bronx, is changing the culture, is changing lives, and thank you and welcome.
Thank you, President Diaz. We're now going to kick off the presentation with a short video highlighting our progress to date.
Being the REDC co-chair has really been an exciting and an amazing opportunity to see how dynamic and diverse the New York City economy is. Nowhere do you see that more than our applications.
All the building blocks are here, and New Yorkers grab those building blocks and make really exciting things happen.
Veterans Future Lab is an incubator/entrepreneurship hub that will allow veterans to transition from a life in service to a lifetime in the innovation economy. For the innovation economy to continue to work, what we really need to do is we constantly need to be bringing in new members into it. And so this is an untapped community. Startups nationally, 80% of them fail. At NYU Tandon, our future labs, we actually have the inverse of that. 85% of our businesses succeed. In fact, we have a net economic impact of about $350 million, and we have employed over 2,500 people.
Ghetto Film School is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2000 here in the South Bronx. What started as an arts program eventually evolved into workforce development, helping industry partners start to identify talent at an early age. It's a long-term commitment where we have folks in their 14 or 15 years old and work with them all the way through their late 20s. So we think there's a lot of transferable skills that people learn in our program. Improvisation, teamwork, project-based learning. Those kind of things you're going to need in the 21st century economy.
Core to Galvanize's mission and vision is transforming lives. 40% of computing jobs don't require college degrees today. These are skills-based jobs. And what Galvanize does is trains individuals to compete for those jobs. We have some very large partner companies that have committed to us in this space before we even opened our doors. Having companies work alongside of our students provides access to talent for the companies, and it also allows our students to learn from actual industry partners.
Right now, Green Point Manufacturing Design Center has 110 businesses under roof. They employ about 625 people. Our mission is to create these physical spaces in urban environments to make it friendly to small manufacturers. We have a variety of different businesses. We have jewelry makers, we have metal cutters, metal spinners, we have architectural woodworkers. Now, I often say it's not my father's and grandfather's version of manufacturing, but it's still a significant part of the economy.
The development that's going on around the ferry area is huge for Staten Island, and it's really put us on the map in a very different way.
I think what's exciting about these developments, they're bringing a lot of new jobs to Staten Island.
About 2 million people that ride the ferry each year. Now we're talking about 7 million people who could be potentially getting off that ferry boat and looking for something to do. We have the National Lighthouse Museum. Every light for every lighthouse in the country at one point was made here on Staten Island. We also have Snug Harbor Cultural Center, which is an amazing 83-acre campus, as well as several different museums.
So the REDC is one of the most important economic initiatives for New York City. It has generated a tremendous amount of economic activity from this grant at the grassroots level. And for that, I'd say the REDC has been incredibly impactful.
We are super excited that the Regional Economic Development Council was able to fund our Veterans Future Lab. And we think that the investment is going to really benefit this new community, but will be built upon this track record that we already have that's super successful.
Well, the REDC is a great stamp of approval, and we're very interested in this facility through the REDC's support being a place that will increase our reach.
Thanks to REDC, Galvanize was able to accelerate its efforts on development here in New York City. New York City is the hub of business. Considering that Galvanize offers access to talent and physical space to grow your company, there's no better place for us to be.
Thanks to the help of RDC, we're putting together a $40 million project that is going to generate $23 million of economic impact annually here in Queens and New York City.
It's not easy to run business in New York City, especially when you're a small mom and pop. And what we really want to do is leverage this to bring the visitors onto Staten Island, to support our local businesses, to support the mom and pops, and making sure that they have the right tools.
And the REDC grant is absolutely going to help us do that.
Through the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, we have the opportunity to help communities that are on the cusp of economic prosperity.
The Bronx's application was particularly strong this year in that it was extremely cohesive. The master plan was outstanding.
Creating, I think, a cohesive downtown area means connecting vital components of it. The lower concourse revitalization, the expansion of Hostos, the commercial development that's happening, the film studio presence that is growing. All of that energy, we thought, made a great candidate for the DRI designation.
When New York City was a top performer last year, it was really exciting for us because it was evidence of the incredible creativity that comes out of the city and the applications that were submitted.
Everybody is out there pounding the pavement. We're as excited as we've ever been. We want to be a top performer again this year. Go big or go home. That's what this council's all about. We're here to make sure economic development in New York City is number one.
Thank you. So, in support of the governor's 2017 priorities, our council redoubled its efforts to promote the CFA process and encourage applications from across New York City. We worked with representatives from life science companies, workforce development groups, universities, state and local elected officials, early stage business and incubators, and tourism and cultural organizations to spread the word and build a robust project pipeline. This year we held 6 CFA information sessions and 2 CFA workshops in New York City, with at least 1 info session or workshop in each of the 5 boroughs. We also held a public forum in July to showcase possible priority projects. Our efforts have paid dividends. The REDC received a total of 320 finalized applications, including 123 applicants participating in the CFA process for the first time. Today, our panel will present a brief summary of our progress in rounds 1 through 6 and our priorities for the coming year. Cheryl will open up with a summary of the progress report.
Over the first 6 rounds, the New York City region has been awarded just over $400 million to assist 481 projects. 83% of those projects are either complete or on schedule. They represent a total investment of over $3.3 billion in private and other public investment, which has leveraged funding from state grants and tax credits in a ratio of 15-1. Most importantly, these jobs will create and retain over 33,000 permanent jobs. In the video, you were introduced to a few of our past priority projects: the Ghetto Film School in the Bronx, the NYU Veterans Future Lab in Brooklyn, Greenpoint Manufacturing Design Center in Queens, Galvanize in Manhattan, and the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce Tourism Plan. Looking just at our priority projects, 81% are either complete or on schedule. This represents a total investment of over $2.6 billion in private and other public investment, leveraging state funding on a 24-to-1 ratio. Carol will now provide some detail on some of our past priority projects that clearly demonstrate our region's efforts to advance the governor's priorities.
Cambridge Biolabs helped develop the life science cluster in Boston, Cambridge, and it's now expanding to New York City. After a long search for a suitable space, Biolabs recently announced that it will move into space owned by NYU in Lower Manhattan, providing top-of-the-line research equipment and business support to help companies reach their milestones faster. The 50,000 square foot project is designed to house up to 35 startups. The Round 5 project received a $2 million grant, and the incubator will start hosting companies at the end of this year. Voice Technologies is a communication company that designs and manufactures the new communication system that the MTA is deploying in New York City subways. In Round 5, Voice was awarded $2.6 million in ESD grants and Excelsior tax credits to be used for a $32 million facility in Long Island City, Queens, that just opened. The project will retain 58 jobs and create 41 new jobs. Voice Technologies was recently named one of the fastest growing companies in New York City by Crain's New York, and I just want to add that they also announced just the other day they've already grown out of this space, and they plan on expanding the company into an additional 150,000 square feet within Long Island City. The New York Botanical Garden Conservatory is a 100-year-old structure that houses programs and exhibitions at one of the Bronx's most important tourism attractions. An engineering report found that the conservatory's dome will be structurally unsound within the next few years. The garden was awarded $600,000 in ESD capital and Market New York grant funding in Round 6 to fund the $15 million conservatory restoration, specifically to purchase new energy-efficient LED lighting. It is anticipated that the project will begin in the spring of 2019 and will take approximately 9 months to complete. As you are aware, in August of 2016, Governor Cuomo announced the downtown Jamaica was selected as the winner of the $10 million DRI for New York City. Queens Borough President Melinda Katz and I were asked by the governor's office to be the co-chairs for the Jamaica DRI Local Planning Committee. In March of this year, after a 6-month public planning and engagement process, including 5 public planning meetings and a public open house, the local planning committee submitted a strategic investment plan to expand economic opportunity and support a vibrant, connected, inclusive, mixed-use downtown. In July, Lieutenant Governor Hochul announced funding for 7 catalytic projects from a list of 50 potential projects, and they include active key gateways into Jamaica, including a pedestrian plaza and entryways between the Long Island Railroad tracks and York College. Promote local entrepreneurship and career development, including a 10,000 square foot co-working space and job training programs. Expand broadband access for area residents, businesses, and visitors. These projects are expected to leverage up to $8 million in other funding and create over 30 new businesses. These projects are currently in contracting phase and will be overseen by ESD, HCR, and DOL. The Office of the Borough President will assist in monitoring the project implementation.
Thanks, Carol. We'll next hear from Kathy Wild from the Partnership for New York City, who will present New York City's vision for life sciences and workforce development.
So we have 2 priorities this year. One, in terms of the cluster development, is to really expand upon the investment that was started last year when, almost a year ago, when Governor Cuomo last December announced a major state commitment, $620 million life sciences cluster development program statewide. New York City has been working with Western New York, Mid-Hudson Valley, and Long Island to put together this cluster. We have for years, with strong state support for basic science, basic research, academic side of the industry, we have developed in New York a great center of discovery with global ramifications. What we haven't done is done a good job of commercializing that activity, of turning it into businesses and jobs. And that's really the mission the governor set out, and that's what our priority cluster development activity is taking place. Carol mentioned the biolabs project, but we've got a number of projects starting here now. The key is business development, putting together venture capital. That is happening in New York. For the first time, we have, in the last quarter, we have surpassed Boston in venture capital investment. We are on the way, and it's a very exciting interregional initiative. We are looking for support in the next year for some specific projects that are listed here, both in terms of planning development and actual companies that are growing in New York. And again, this is not for research labs. This is to take the product out of the labs and turn it into jobs and economic activity in New York. We see this as creating 25,000 jobs in the state over the next few years and a whole series of new business activities. The life sciences industry is a $350 billion global industry. We can be openings listed, and we have 240,000 people unemployed. And the difference is the skills gap, obviously. So we've got a lot of jobs being produced in the innovation economy and jobs that support the innovation economy, and we have not scaled up our programs. We've got great small programs, kind of boutique. It's about scaling them up, and that's what we're going to be trying to do this year, is knit the pieces together. In terms of examples, there are a number of them listed here, and these are all programs that are meeting a need where there are real jobs. And so whether it's in the arts industry, where the Apollo Theater is taking young people and training them in arts management, which, as you know, is an important sector in our community, or the Brooklyn Public Library turning their facilities, renovating their facilities to create job and career centers right within the library that people have access to. The Commissary for Social Justice, which is a group that is taking ex-offenders and helping them train on food trucks, and building a commissary that they can really create an industry out of all these individual food trucks, and again scale up job opportunities for a whole group of people. These are all efforts that knit together our resources, academic, like where we are today. Stuart Applebaum from our executive committee is here from the Retail Council, very big supporter of this effort. This is what qualifies people for good paying jobs, putting that effort together. So we've got a lot of projects, a lot of interest in this area, and we're delighted that this year the state has made this an REDC priority.
Thanks, Kathy. Next we'll hear from Ken Knuckles on some of our other 2017 priority projects.
Thank you, Cheryl. In addition to the life sciences and workforce development that Kathy's discussed, we are excited about a number of other 2017 priority projects. We have helped to focus significant public and private investment in the city's most important advanced manufacturing center, the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Over the past 6 rounds, over $27 million in ESD, grant, and Excelsior tax credits has been awarded to 13 projects located there. This year, we're recommending ESD capital funding for a new Brooklyn Navy Yard project, BNYC, which will be the flagship U.S. location of B Amsterdam, the largest startup tech incubator in Europe. This is a $28 million project expected to create over 1,000 new jobs and 300 construction jobs. In a related project, we're also proposing Innovation Hotspot funding for an educational training partnership between BNYC and the City University of New York. We're also recommending funding for an infrastructure project in downtown Far Rockaway, where New York City DOT, Department of Transportation, will reconstruct a number of streets to create a community hub with access to businesses, affordable housing, and local services. This project will include a public plaza that safely connects pedestrians between the A train and regional buses. The final design is estimated to be completed in July 2018, with construction expected to begin in August of that year. Far Rockaway submitted an application for round 2 of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative this year, which was a strong runner-up to the South Bronx. Governor Cuomo announced last year that the state is investing $15 million in the construction of a new $20 million green market food hub in the Hunts Point section of the Bronx that will be operated by Grow NYC. The project was a council priority in round 6. The state-of-the-art 120,000 square foot facility will increase New Yorkers' access to fresh, locally grown and produced food, much of which is produced in upstate. You'll be hearing more about this project later on the bus tour. Also, with the addition of the New York State Grown and Certified Agricultural Producers Grant Program, that's a mouthful. To this round of the CFA, we are now recommending funding for this Ag and Markets program to Grow NYC for a project called Farm Roots, which will help producers meet food safety standards necessary for participation in the governor's New York State Grown and Certified program. To end this discussion on our 2017 priority projects, I'd just like to note that our progress report recommends 11 priority projects from ESD's Capital Fund to advance the state's and our region's growth objectives. These projects represent a total state investment of more than $20 million, leveraging over $191 million in private and other funding at an overall investment ratio of 10-to-1. Collectively, these projects will support the creation of nearly 2,300 new jobs, almost 1,200 construction jobs, and the retention of more than 317 existing jobs. Finally, we are pleased with the designation of the Bronx Civic Center for round 2 of the governor's Downtown Revitalization Initiative. The REDC conducted a wide-ranging outreach and nomination process to solicit applications for the DRI. All 5 borough presidents worked with the community boards, universities, local business improvement districts, and local economic development organizations to identify candidate downtown locations, resulting in the presentation of 8 DRI applicants from all 5 boroughs of the city. After careful review of our DRI committee, the REDC Executive Committee nominated the Bronx Civic Center for the DRI designation. Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., who serves as the co-chair of the DRI Local Planning Committee, will now present a vision for the Bronx Civic Center.
Thank you, Ken. I just want to say that the day that we had this announcement with Governor Cuomo at the Bronx Museum of Art, it was a big day for us. It was a big deal. We really appreciated the turnout. We also had Assembly Speaker Carl Hasty there with us, so many of the elected officials, and we celebrated. I just want to note that I've been joined today with my co-chair of the DRI Local Planning Committee, Marlene Cintron, who's the president of the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation. And, you know, we had a wonderful team that submitted our proposal, headed by my general counsel, Ray Sanchez, who's in the back. Again, I just want to thank Governor Cuomo for his support of the Bronx with this $10 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative Award. I also want to thank Winston Fisher, Cheryl Moore, and all of the other members of the New York City REDC Executive Committee for recommending the Bronx Civic Center to the DRI nominee for New York City, and for inviting me to be part of this presentation today. I have to say we've already had 2 meetings, one with all of the local elected officials that touch that footprint, as well as we've already comprised our committee members, and we've met with them as well. The Bronx Civic Center downtown area encompasses 2 vibrant and emerging business improvement districts. The Hub, better known as 149th Street and 3rd Avenue, and the 161st Street Capitol District. It also includes an expanding Hostos Community College, extensive waterfront access, and redeveloped parks surrounding Yankee Stadium, among other amenities. The area is home to a diverse population of nearly 250,000 and is in an area with a strong civic and office core, bolstered by new and enhanced tourism destinations and institutions like the Gateway Center, Harlem River Waterfront Parks, Bronx Museum of Arts, and Lincoln Hospital. The area's recently constructed Bronx Hall of Justice consists of 47 different Supreme and criminal courtrooms. The nearby Joyce Kilmer Park and Lou Gehrig Plaza provide public parkland and settings for concert, exhibitions, and festivals. The Bronx Civic Center is also complemented by the South Bronx Gateway, Randall's Island Connector, and Mill Pond Park. A tech triangle is also budding in the Bronx Civic Center, with many entrepreneurial firms starting up in the Hub, Mott Haven, Port Morris, and Hunts Point. Nearby Hunts Point is also home to the largest wholesale produce market in the world and one of the largest food distribution centers in this country. We are also incredibly excited about the changes coming to the intersection on 149th Street, just up the hill here, and the Grand Concourse, between the much-needed Hostos Community College expansion, including a new Allied Health and Sciences building, the redevelopment of the former PS31, my former alma mater, and the imminent renaissance of the post office by Young Woo. Our borough will have, oh, and by the way, just down the street here on the north side of the bridge, we have what's called Bronx Point, which is a new, it has been designated, a new development is going there, residential, commercial, waterfront access, and yes, hopefully, home to the Hip Hop Museum in the Boogie Down Bronx. Despite these investments and other activity, significant needs still exist. Like I said earlier, life is not perfect. The Bronx is home to the largest concentration of low-income households in New York City. Bronx residents face the highest risk of housing displacement of any county in New York, in the New York region, due to economic vulnerability and soaring housing costs. Despite the fact that our borough has so many low-income residents, nowhere in New York City have rents risen as fast or as much as in the South Bronx. Median sales prices in some South Bronx areas jumped 64% last year. These neighborhoods are already densely populated, so investments in infrastructure and programming to support existing residents, businesses, and workers will be critical to long-term growth and sustainability. The DRI presents a great opportunity to harness the energy of the Bronx Civic Center into a much more focused, comprehensive strategy for economic revitalization and growth opportunities for the existing residents. And so I'm looking forward to making sure that while $10 million sounds like a lot, we definitely, believe me, trust me, we're going to make $1 out of 15 cents. Thank you.
In closing, over the past 6 years, the New York City RADC has built broad consensus around the strategies, priorities, and values that will make our city stronger, more vibrant, and more inclusive. New York City is the state's primary economic engine, attracting talent and investment from around the world. The city's continued success is critical not only to the state's economic health, but also to the global economic clout of the entire country. Importantly, in New York City, we've embraced the innovation economy while also aiming to ensure that economically distressed communities have opportunities to fully participate in it.
Our focus on key projects that will spur job creation and economic development has included serious attention to advancing the Governor's Life Science Initiative and Regional Cluster Plan, addressing the skills gap issue and implementing our opportunity agenda through workforce development, furthering interregional collaboration, promoting sustainability, and creating new economic development opportunities for low-income community and veterans. Moving smart economic development projects forward and ensuring that all New Yorkers are prepared to participate in a growing and changing economy are key objectives to the RADC initiative. This council is energized, and we're committed to ensuring that all of the governor's initiatives are met. What we're asking about this year is talking about creating 3,700 jobs. That's a lot of jobs. These are focusing on an industry. It's a $337 billion industry of life science. We are going to get some of that economic pie. This is about helping the 1.2 million residents of New York that are making $20,000 or less. This is a plan. Being a top performer helps address those problems and has a direct economic impact that will help everybody in the state. And with that, thank you very much and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank and recognize the president of the college we're sitting in, David Gomez of Ostos, who, hi, just say hello. Thank you for hosting us. We're going to go to Brian Stratton for the first question.
Madam Secretary, thank you very much, and I want to thank the co-chairs and everyone on the council for that dynamic presentation. Very inspiring. I think I had the opportunity to come over and say hello, and I'm the director of the New York State Canal Corporation, which includes our great Erie Canal, which is part of 524 miles of canal system throughout upstate New York. But it does have a very strong connection here to the New York City region, because when the Erie Canal opened in 1825, and it's been going strong for nearly 200 years, it really made New York City the #1 port. And prior to that, New Orleans was the #1 port. So without the Erie Canal, it's very likely to say that the Statue of Liberty might be standing in New Orleans Harbor and not New York City. So we're very grateful for that fact. Which brings me to my question about the waterfront. And while New York City has very many beautiful waterfront trails, it also has working waterfronts that contribute to the city's global economy. In 2011, the New York Container Terminal received funding to dredge Berth 3. We all know how important dredging is, particularly along the canal, enabling the terminal to handle deep draft freight coming in from the enlarged Panama Canal, the post-Panama Canal, post-Panamax Canal. So can you tell me how that has impacted shipping and what the economic impact of that will be?
Please.
So these projects are slow, so I don't think it's impacted shipping yet. But the idea is without this dredging, we would not be able to keep pace and we would lose these big ships that are coming in. I recently tried to take advantage of the suspension of the Jones Act to get a ship from Newark to Puerto Rico with supplies, and they said that the minimum size ship they have takes 4,000 containers, if you can imagine. So these are big ships. We need the harbor done. That project is going forward, and hopefully the sooner it's done, the better shape we'll be in. So we will check on its exact status and get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Destia.
Thank you. It's great to be back here in New York and visiting. We look forward to the Bronx, and I'm always glad to be back with my former colleague Ruben Diaz, because he began his political career with those of us who started in the assembly. So we're very proud of you, Ruben.
Always a pleasure to see you, Ro.
Thank you. We were at the Genome Center the last time we were here, and I would really like to see if you can elaborate on how the Genome Center will help develop the life science industry cluster, because we were in Long Island, they talked about it, Mid-Hudson. We know it's an regional economic development council project. So if you could elaborate, that would be very helpful, because we've heard about it in several regions of the state.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
So,
And it was great to visit the last time we were here.
happy to have you.
Thank you.
The Genome Center has been around for about 4 years now. We have about 200 employees of our own, and we have 12 institutional founding members, which are the leading medical research organizations and medical hospitals in New York, primarily in the city. We also have collaborations upstate. So we serve as a convening center to bring the community together and pursue NIH funding and bring it into the region. We also have spun out our first company. We are licensing technology that's been developed at the Genome Center. And we're also proud to be hosting J Labs with the support of the state, which is an initiative of Johnson & Johnson to house startup companies in our 3rd floor. So they'll house up to 30 individual companies that'll be opening next summer.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Weir. Thank you. I echo everyone else's sentiment. It's lovely to be in the Bronx. It was so nice to be able to commute within my own city for this instead of driving across the state. So very happy to be here, and congratulations on a really wonderful plan. You've done a great job. Of course, I'm all about workforce development, and Kathy Wild and I have had a number of conversations about this, and I'm impressed with the workforce trainings that you've outlined. It's varied, it's spread across the city. It is impressive that you've identified where they are and what their focus is. My concern now is, there are the 37% of high school graduates who are not career ready or college ready. That is a gigantic number. And we know that the disconnected youth issue in New York City is very severe. So can you talk to me about what is your plan to address the disconnected youth? It's one thing to have training programs, but oftentimes these are people who are not even ready to do that or don't know how to even connect to it. So talk to me about how that connection can work.
Well, the city has a real focus on disconnected youth ages 16 to 24, and they've got a couple of things that have happened. One is we've really ramped up programs that provide both summer job and work experience. We're ramping up also our career and technical education programs, both in high school and in the community colleges, and partnerships between the two. Unfortunately, for kids that have dropped out, there's no easy answer to going back to school. Essentially, most of the jobs we're talking about require that. So we're trying to make sure that we beef up combination of work, education experiences, skills training experiences, and the city is putting a large commitment into that, as well as the state's commitment. We right now have an application pending that I didn't mention for a 9 to 16, the governor's P-Tech program. We just submitted an application this week for a cybersecurity high school. By 2020, there are going to be 400,000 additional cybersecurity jobs in this country, and we are not prepared to fill them. So we're working with Bronx Community College, John Jay College, and with the City Department of Education on a high school that is going to be have employer partners from MasterCard and K2, Kroll's investigatory service in cybersecurity. So we're trying to find every place we can to intervene and to make sure that it is inclusive of the young people that have been left out and that are disconnected.
Thank you. Who's there?
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask a little bit, as you might suspect, about housing and affordable housing. There's an enormous amount of affordable housing in the Bronx, which is great. There's also a huge demand for affordable housing in the Bronx. So I wonder if you could just talk a little about how you sort of strategically think about the housing challenges and how you sort of support those as an REDC.
I mean, from an affordable housing perspective, there's a tremendous amount of energy today that's coming out of the city and the state to get that. I mean, the challenges are obviously a run-up in land prices that you've seen everywhere. I know the Bronx, the great thing is it's experiencing tremendous economic development that also translates into higher prices, harder things to transact. I do think that you are seeing a sustained effort from private developers working with charities, et cetera, that are continuing to push it out. obviously the council is, where it's appropriate, is doing our best to support it. One of the challenges I'd say that is something that we see coming down the path is with the new tax bill that could possibly have things that are past this council. So there's, I would say, from speaking for myself, there's a deep concern about what the future of low-income housing looks like in New York City with this future tax bill. But as it relates today, I'd say it's actually a fairly robust market. You're starting to see the 421A is back. It went from 25 to 25 or 30%, depending on the AMI, which is also really spurred development. It had stopped for a while, so you're starting to see that kick back in. And you can also see the rush of projects that we're trying to get in under the 421A before are about to come online. And you're gonna, Long Island City is a perfect example of that. Tremendous amount of units that are coming on, they are 421A units. And so you will start to see more affordable housing as part of it. So it is working, and as a council, it's as best we can, we support it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here in the Bronx, because coming from Brooklyn, a lot of times people think New York City is Manhattan, so where it's both ends of the BRs, I guess. Looking at the past priority projects and the proposed priority projects, I see that they're, in terms of Brooklyn, sort of clustered right at the downtown Brooklyn Navy Yard, Red Hook, and in Queens, just a couple of very scattered projects. And I was just wondering, is that a lack of organization in other parts of those boroughs, or are there, do we need to be doing more to look into those communities to see if there are projects, there are commercial areas in those in those parts of Brooklyn, Queens, that we should be trying to reach out to attract more people? Brooklyn sounds like, it's very compact, but to get from where my office is in Brooklyn to down where like Steiner Studio, I know my staffer goes to Brooklyn College graduate film program, takes her over an hour and 20 minutes by bus. So it's almost, could be in a totally different city. A program there doesn't really help folks in southern Brooklyn.
I think the biggest phenomenon has been the Brooklyn Navy Yard and what's happened there in the past decade. And so a preponderance of the Brooklyn projects have grown out of there, and we have more in this section in this year, big ones last year, New Lab. But advanced manufacturing is something that we have waited for in this city for many, many years to happen, that New York could once again, in all 5 boroughs, be competitive for manufacturing activity. And until technology, hardware, and software came together to create this new generation of manufacturing, we really couldn't afford to compete with overseas, actually, markets for production. Today, we can, and that's one way in which the technological revolution is really helping our economy in a very positive way. So the Brooklyn Navy Yard was first into that business and has an enormous amount of property. Because it's publicly owned, it doesn't have the land price issue that Winston mentioned, that so much of the rest of the city struggles to do site assemblage. So it's a terrific model, and it's one that we're now trying to see replicated. One of the Greenpoint Manufacturing Design Center, which was always in Brooklyn, is now doing Ozone Park, and found a building, and they got priced out of Brooklyn. They're doing Queens, and hopefully they'll get to the Bronx. And so we've got a number of examples where we're trying to grow that activity. Winston and Cheryl have done a terrific job of upping our outreach for applications and to let everybody know this exists. We think we're going to do better and better on getting a broader range of applications from the remote reaches of the city than we have in the past. But it really has been that there was an untapped opportunity. There hadn't, the REDC process opened up in some of these areas, and Brooklyn has benefited from that.
Let me just add to that. The Brooklyn Navy Yard was an anomaly. It was a large piece of land that
became available to individuals at $4 a square foot. At that time, we were at $12 a square foot. But certainly what you have before you is what was approved, not necessarily what was submitted. So I don't want to leave the impression that there weren't other applications that were submitted that are not necessarily before you. The Bronx has benefited from the outgrowth of a lot of these Brooklyn companies who we have more than embraced moving into the Bronx. But certainly it is my intent to ensure that the Bronx is better represented in future applications that are accepted, including this year.
I'd just like to add, as the council's biggest Queens cheerleader, we try hard not to compete borough against borough, but yes, the Brooklyn Navy Yard had tremendous growth, but they had tremendous opportunity. There are tremendous opportunities opening up in Jamaica. The downtown initiative certainly will help that growth along. There's a lot of technology, small businesses, entrepreneurs coming out of there with the regrowth of JFK. We're starting to see the spillover. We're seeing, service industry growing tremendously. Certainly Long Island City is going to have many opportunities, and we're seeing that come in now with the technologies and really a transformation from a very strong manufacturing industrial area changing into a different type of manufacturing. So as Cornell Technion opens up, we are anticipating a lot of growth. One of the reasons we looked at life science opportunities for Long Island City, because we're seeing concentrations in that area of Queens. So I think that what you're seeing is timing as these neighborhoods change and as opportunities are opening up for businesses and entrepreneurs, you're going to see more applications coming in from those areas.
And I would just add, Assemblywoman, you probably heard me mention the Green Market Food Hub in Hunts Point, which is one of the last large industrial swaths of property in the city. So that's a project that's emerging, and I think with the DRI initiative, which is going to enable the Bronx to even better define what the opportunities are in and around the South Bronx, you're going to see a lot more activity, certainly with the advocacy of Marlene, as well as, I think, the natural attraction of the Bronx as an opportunity area.
I have a question about millennials. Everywhere we went in the state and other regions, many of the regions struggle with how to retain their millennials. How to, a lot of the DRIs are these downtown walkable communities, so that young people who want to, walk to work. We went to a fabulous Thinkubator in Utica, and so as I realized that all those millennials are coming here, I wonder what challenges are different. I have two at home. I'm trying to get here too. I wonder what challenges for this region, right, for the city, millennials present that maybe whether they're housing, employment, or other issues, how you view them, as a market, or what other issues we may be grappling with.
When you look at the millennials, and we see this around the city, that they're attracted here because there's not only economic opportunity, there's cultural vibrancy that exists here. I would say affordable housing is a serious issue for millennials. I mean, it is. Every employer in our portfolio, every employer we talk to, is finding a place that these people can live and raise their families. Millennials
and leave their parents home.
And leave their parents home. But the challenge is also, what you see with millennials is it's not just about getting a job. It's about getting a job that provides life satisfaction. And that's an important component to how you think about attracting talent and keeping talent. So You see companies, you see areas that it is the vibrancy of the restaurants, it's the vibrancy of the art scene, it's the ability to go to theater, it's access to all of those different things that are important. I think New York is unique in a sense relative to some of the other regions, that there's an abundance of it, but it is also critical that we foster that, and that we foster this as a place that is inviting to ideas, because they appreciate ideas, they want their voice heard, which is an important component for companies when they're thinking about attraction. Open work plans, open space. A lot of people have to redo space today just to attract millennials and keep them so that their culture fits that. So it's a long answer, but the answer, for a place like New York, at the most basic, affordable housing, keep the industries here that pay good jobs and create a good art scene and culture.
I would love to add to that, Madam Secretary, because I'm from the Bronx, and as a result, I'm going to brag about what's happening here. It's been interesting to see that as millennials can no longer afford to live in Manhattan, possibly no longer afford to live in Brooklyn, that they're now looking and moving into the Bronx. There is quite amount of development going on in the Alexander Bruckner Boulevard area. That whole issue of affordable housing, walk to work, market rate housing is very, very, very quickly being developed into what we call the empowerment zone. We have a developer that has actually created what I call dorm type housing on Alexandra Avenue. It's going to be opening up rather soon, where the living room is a communal living room, and then the living space is their own personal living space. Certainly that kind of works with the millennials, and as a result there's been quite a number of restaurants that have already begun to develop around the area, and of course there's going to be market rate housing just across the street. So certainly the whole issue of affordable housing for the Bronx Borough President needed to go up in terms of AMI, because he lost his son, who now has a job with the city of New York, to Manhattan, Upper Manhattan, and he's living with 3 other friends, and he wants his son back in the Bronx. And so certainly what we want to ensure is that those children who did good academically, went away to school, are able to come back, if they want to the borough where their parents are, in a place that really and truly meets their needs. Great bars and restaurants nearby, access to great, transportation, needless to say, at a price point where they can afford. So certainly it's something that is of concern of all 5 boroughs, but certainly there are interesting new answers that he's working on, the borough president's working on here in the borough, that's working, and at the same time that other developers are looking at and are filling that niche and that need with unique kind of housing like we're getting now in the Bruckner Boulevard area.
Okay, good. And we're good. We're going to stay on schedule. We're going to have the pleasure of your company, so we'll continue to pepper you with questions for the rest of the day. But thank you very much for a great presentation, and thank you all for coming out to cheer the Bronx.